And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 154th episode, recorded on Sunday, March 2nd, 2025. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, alongside my co-host, Kathy Amos. Today, we'll be discussing your Indiana Hoosiers regular season finale victory over the arch-rival Purdue Boilermakers 77-57. That brings their record to 18-11 overall and 10-8 to finish out the Big Ten season. But as we always do, we'll start this broadcast with our banner moment, and kind of a two-part banner moment here for me. Congrats to Yarden Garzon for breaking the three-point career record today with her second three of the day. And I believe that occurred in the fourth quarter, so congrats to Yarden. And then, but for me, as somebody who kind of grew up when this was a lopsided rivalry in the other way, to me, the banner moment still continues to be the win streak in this series. Indiana now 13 wins in a row in this series. As I said, growing up in the 80s through the 90s, this series was dominated by Purdue, and now to see it coming back the other way and seeing IU on this run as an IU fan for all these years is really something to behold. So kind of a two-part banner moment. Yarden Garzon breaking the three-point record for career threes, and 13 straight victories over the Boilermakers. And our banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, which includes the Assembly Call, Crimson Cast, X's and Joe's, and the Dribble Drive. Home Field is consistently releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. You're bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you're supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelly School business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23. That's HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. And just real quick in news, in case you missed it last night, and Kathy, I do want to kind of get your thoughts as we'll move into the Amos angle here right after this. USC went into Pauley Pavilion last night and came away with an 80-67 victory over UCLA, which gave them the outright Big Ten title. And Kathy, again, it's kind of what I want your thoughts, but I just watching that game. I like UCLA. I really think they're dangerous and can make a deep run. But I just felt like USC was even more athletic than UCLA. I just, the game was really won, but athletically on just being able to put the ball on the floor, make plays, and at times, even though I think UCLA is more athletic than probably everybody else in the league, they looked slow at times against USC. And so, congrats to the Trojans on the Big Ten Conference title, and I'll throw it over to Kathy for the Amos angle here real quick.
Try again. I didn't actually get to watch the USC UCLA game. My husband and I actually had plans and we were out. So I recorded it and then I looked at the score and I was like, "Oh, I don't think I need to." It looked like I did watch part of the third quarter here later today, but UCLA at that point had made it a pretty good game. So I'm guessing USC must have just really made a nice run there in the fourth quarter. So unfortunately, I didn't get to see that game, but around our game, I think, Jeff, you had a couple of nice banner moments there to pick from. Another one we could mention as well today, Chloe Moore McNeil, even though it wasn't her best game. And again, she kind of had some foul trouble that kept her limited in her time. However, she did start and play in the game, and she broke the all-time record for most games played, surpassing Grace Berger, who she had tied with in our last game. So congratulations as well to Chloe on just, again, a nice career. I do want to shout out, I know we're basketball, so I won't talk about it a whole lot, but again, for those of you who might have heard me talk about it before, I do like swimming as well. Our men just went in and trolloped all of the other Big Ten swimming schools in the Big Ten swimming this weekend. So go check that on Twitter. They won by the biggest margin ever. They're currently ranked second in the nation. So keep an eye out for the men's swim team in particular, but the women, I think, are sixth in the nation as well. So some fun swimming news there as well. But, back to here, just always fun to beat your rival, but not just beat them, but the 13th straight, like you mentioned, Jeff, and by 20 points and on their court. Sydney Parish is just like, someone mentioned in our Discord chat today, this was basically like Sydney and Chloe going out on a home win because we've kind of taken over Mackey Arena. And now Chloe joins the same 4-0, or excuse me, 8-0 club with 10-0 because she had 5 years, 10-0 with Mackenzie Holmes as well. So it's just always fun. That makes for a fun Sunday afternoon. So really excited to see what we might be able to do here in the Big Ten tournament that we'll talk about coming up.
Well, I'm going to throw it right back to you, Kathy, and kind of let you go first here, and any pivotal moments, plays here for the first half.
Yeah, I didn't feel like there was a whole lot in terms of like major pivotal plays. So we had just a lot of really nice runs. That first quarter in particular, we went on a 14-2 run that put us up 16-8, and then a 12-0 run to kind of end out that quarter. It ended up, outscoring Purdue 24-9 in that first quarter. And I thought that first quarter kind of set the tone for us, which I know Coach Morin wanted to see us do after our loss to Maryland. But I think the theme here that I really noticed especially was kind of the fouls, right? Like we got into some foul trouble. Chloe getting her second with 3 minutes left in that first quarter, then a third foul on Chloe. I was kind of surprised actually that Chloe came back in after that second foul. But she came back out and then got a third foul in that second quarter at 7:40. Then Lexi got her second foul, fourth foul on Chloe in the third quarter. It just, we were just having some trouble, especially I thought Chloe without fouling today. So that was kind of the theme. Otherwise, I thought that first half was pretty good. Outside of the second quarter where we had a bit of a slow start, but we ended that quarter really well as well, and ended up, scoring the same with Purdue going into a nice lead at halftime.
So, and for me, really the whole quarter, to me, the game was in the first quarter, because if you look at the quarter by quarter after that, it's pretty much an even game. Yeah, I mean, I know Indiana ends up winning by 20, but the game was really in the first quarter. For me, the pivotal moment was late in the first quarter, as you talked about. They were on that run, and it was already 18-8, and Sid hit back-to-back threes and made it 24-8. And to me, it was, it wasn't over, but you just knew with Purdue's inability at times to score a lot of points that they were going to struggle to have to overcome a double-digit margin as long as we didn't help them a whole lot. So I thought, to me, in the first half, that was the pivotal moment, was Sydney's back-to-back threes that took it, was kind of a 10-point lead and stretched to 16 really quickly, back-to-back possessions. And then that was, to me, from there, that was the game. But what about the second half, Kathy? What do you think about there?
Yeah, so again, I think, we came out and having a little bit of trouble again with the press, had some turnovers, kind of slowed us down. Purdue went on a 9-0 run to get back to within 10 points, and then Shea Chesky hits a three, and that really kind of started a nice run for us to end at that third quarter. We went on 11-2 run to end that quarter. So I thought that whole stretch, starting with that three-pointer from Shea Chesky, was quite pivotal for us as well. So there were some nice plays, I thought, from Shea Chesky today in that quarter as well. She hit I put down a half-court pass because it was almost full length of the court down to Striplin early on in that third quarter for a nice layup, and then Striplin got fouled and made that free throw as well. But to me, I think the other pivotal moment outside of the runs we talked about in the first quarter was at the end of that third quarter. So that 11-2 run to make sure Purdue didn't try to get their way back into that game in the third, fourth quarter. And then I think we pretty much held them even in the fourth there as well. Yeah, we outscored them by 1 in the fourth. So nothing really jumped out to me in the fourth quarter other than Yarden breaking the 3-point made record at that 9:27 mark.
I just add in and kind of a piggyback off yours. They did that a couple times today, second quarter and third quarter, where they just finished strong. They finished strong at the end of the quarter, and that kind of made the quarter look good. At one point in the second quarter, it was 12-6, and we ended up being 15-15 because we had a nice finish. We had the third quarter started off pretty decent. Then we kind of lost focus against the pressure, and that surprised me because we really didn't have a whole lot of trouble to press except that in one segment. Then we finished the third quarter off pretty well. So I agree with you. Just a couple times today where the quarter ended a lot better than either the beginning and or the middle segment. So I don't have anything else as far as any pivotal plays here.
No, we can probably tell the story through the numbers if you wanted to move on.
Yeah, let's go ahead and I'll give you the first crack at it.
Yeah. So today, again, I thought, we've seen this team kind of get bit by turnovers in the past, the turnover bug. We only had 2 in the first half. Now, we did end up with 12 on the game, so we had 10 in that second half. But I thought there was quite a flurry of them in that activity that we talked about in that third quarter when Purdue kind of amped up the press there on us. And so we, like you mentioned, we didn't really struggle with it the whole game, but in that kind of area in that third quarter, we did and picked up, I think I had kind of mentally noted about 3 or 4 turnovers in a row, some of them to that and to that press and some of them not, but it definitely slowed us down there for a little bit. But so it was nice though to see that we ended up with only 12, because we have seen this team kind of, put up some big turnover numbers in some other games, especially if we're getting pressed. So it was good to see that we kind of withstood that in this game.
Yeah, and I'm going to go to the first number that jumps at me, 14 of 14 at the free throw line. For a team that at times has struggled at the free throw line. Other times been really good like today, but 14 of 14 at the free throw line, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't get away without talking about our shooting today. At one point, I think in the first quarter, we shot like 70% in the first quarter, but we still ended up shooting 53% from the field today on 28 made field goals, including 15 assists on those 28. So I thought they did a nice job driving to the bucket, finding, Caroline Striplin a few times, not a whole lot shooting it with a whole lot, but I thought they were aggressive. We saw that from Chloe when she was able to stay on the floor. I thought Sydney did a great job. Cutting to the basket a lot today too. And we ended up outscoring them by 34 to 32 in the paint. So 53% shooting, I thought was a really nice number for us.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then let's flip it to their side. Held Purdue to 36.5%, 21%, and 22% from beyond the arc. And again, Purdue has its own offensive issues, their own offensive struggles. But even, for that, to hold them to, below their season averages and to make them really look at times just bad on shooting the ball. So again, offensively and defensively, I thought that was interesting. They played the clip, and I did not catch this. I'll be honest, I don't watch a lot of Coach Morin's post-game comments afterwards. But I thought coming out of the Maryland game, they played it on the Peacock broadcast today, where she was very disappointed in their focus against Maryland, and really feels like when they are focused, when they're hyper focused, I think is the term she uses, then they can play like they did against Ohio State and some of the other teams they played. I felt today the focus was pretty solid. Did we lose a few players here and there, and they maybe hit a shot or missed a wide open shot? Sure, you're going to have a few breakdowns, but I thought the focus today was pretty solid by the Hoosiers, and that goes back to the defensive numbers.
Yeah, I agree, Jeff. Yeah, 37% when you hold a team to 37% shooting, especially on their own home court, is always good to see. The other number that kind of jumps out that we try to watch quite a bit on here too is the rebounding. Historically this year we've been getting out rebounded, but we won that battle today 36-29, and of those 36, 34 of them were defensive rebounding. So we really kept Purdue off the glass when they weren't making it as well. So offensively, Purdue only had 8 offensive rebounds, leading to 4 second chance points. So I thought the rebounding was pretty good from a defensive perspective. Now on the other end, again, when you're shooting 53%, you don't have a whole lot to rebound. We're just usually not a great offensive rebounding team, and we weren't again today with only 2 for us today. So, but overall, winning the total rebounding battle, I thought was a good way to go out there on the regular season.
Yeah, and I agree with the overall, but you also gave up 8 offensive rebounds to Purdue, and against a better team, that might bite you a little bit because they might have a better second chance points ratio. I really don't have a whole lot in terms of team numbers here because to me it was the shooting. And you already mentioned the turnover. So I will say this: the one thing that I was pretty pleased with was the I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought here. The turnover number was. I'll go back to that real quick. I can live with 12. I don't like the way they kind of came in bunches, but I can live with the 12.
Yep, I agree. Yes, and back to the rebounding, Jeff, I guess it'd be good for me to note it. I don't think this is unusual for us not to get a lot of offensive rebounds. I just think it's a coaching philosophy, right? That Coach Morin has always had the team after a shot to go up, that we get back on defense. So don't see that changing. It's kind of always been like that with Coach Morin. So.
One thing I'll say about that is that in the past, you had players like Grace Berger, Allie Patberg, McKenzie obviously was one that seemed to have a nose for the ball. This was not a team that generally got, on average 2 offensive rebounds a game in the past. This was a team that, got more than that, but they didn't always have to send a lot of players to the glass to get it. So I will agree, it's philosophy, but I don't think this team is as aggressive getting to the offensive glass.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yep. So maybe you want to talk about the bench a little bit before we move on to like the game ball at all? So,
well, no, I mean, if you want to talk about anybody else, go ahead on the numbers, or I was going to save some of the stuff for the awards, but if you want to talk about the bench, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out we did get some nice play again, with Chloe's foul trouble. We did get some nice minutes from Lexi. She ended up playing 25 minutes today and contributed 7 points in that time, including shooting 5 of 5 from the free throw line. As you mentioned, the team overall was 100%, but it's nice to see, as we know Lexi had to really work last year on her shooting. So it was nice to see her go as well. And then Lily came in and gave us some nice minutes too, 11 minutes. And in those 11 minutes, she had 6 points. So we did have a few other players that got in there, but these are, again, the main 2 bench players that played for us today. Jules and Hannah both almost got to double-digit minutes, but I didn't think Jules, she looked a little lost to me at times. She had a really bad turnover there. She ended up with 3 turnovers in her 9 minutes. So she didn't look, maybe back to your point, she wasn't quite hyper-focused today like we maybe need her to be, especially when we start talking about what we'll have next year. But so that was kind of what I was seeing. I would have actually liked to see in the fourth quarter when we had that 20-point lead, maybe a little earlier than a minute and a half left to be able to get Faith in particular, and Katalikova get a little more time than a minute and a half. But it was good to at least see that, again, we could go on the road and be able to, put all of our bench players in at the end. So overall, it was good. Purdue did outscore us with their bench because they did have their leading scorer came off of the bench with McCarthy. So just interesting. But overall, I would say Lexi did a really nice job filling in for Chloe, not being able to get a whole lot of minutes from Chloe today.
See, I was going to go the other way. I thought we got the best game out of Lily we've had in almost a month. Lily was 6 points. Now, she didn't give any rebounds, but she didn't have any turnovers. She did have a block. So I felt like Lily at least made some progress today in terms of maybe just getting a glimpse of some confidence back that we can use as we go into the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament as well. So let's go on and move and talk about the game awards here. And since I'm hosting today, we'll let you go first on the for the game ball.
Yeah. So Jeff, I thought there was maybe a couple of different ways you could go. So we ended up with 3 players. If we were looking at points with double-digit points, Shea Chesky with 18, Yarden with 15, and then Sydney with 20. And then I started looking at some other numbers too as well, and just kind of my gut feel of this play from the beginning to the end of the game, who had the most complete game. And I kind of came down to Sydney and to Shea. And for me, I ended up stopping on Sydney because I really thought that she gave us the best game, all 31 minutes that she played. She almost had a double-double, 2 rebounds away from that. She also contributed 2 assists and only 1 foul for her. And she also had 2 blocks and a steal and no turnovers from her today as well. So I thought overall this was a really fantastic game from Sydney. So for me, I'm going to vote for Sid for my game ball.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was kind of going back and forth between her and Shea and throughout the game. And then I started digging into it a little bit more toward the middle of the fourth quarter. And I realized that what Sydney was doing. And I just felt there were times, I even texted you this, that for the first half of the game, Yarden was invisible. Yeah, and she played better in the second half. But I'm with you. I thought the totality of the game, it really came down to Shea and or Sydney. And I'm going to go with Sydney here because, and again, I've always said this. I'm a fan of plus minus. I know it's flawed, but it's But Sydney was plus 33 today in a game they won by 20. She's plus 33. When she was on the floor. So it tells you she was having impact. So I'm going to go with you, and let's go with Sid for the game ball. And I forgot to update here with our people who are listening on the podcast, not watching us here on the YouTube live. Coming in today, it was Yarden with 7, Sydney had 6, so now she's going to jump up to her 7th game ball award, and then Chloe with 5, Shea with 4, and then Lily and Caroline both have 3 each. So Kathy, I'll go ahead and give you the first crack here at the Grace Berger Hardest Worker.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and vote for Shay on this one again. I thought that she was doing some really nice things out there again. We mentioned her last game as well. I think the last few games we've been getting a lot better play from Shay, and she ended up with 18 points today, including making all of her free throws as well, including 4 assists and only 1 turnover. Again, we've seen some games from Shay, in the middle of that Big Ten season, especially, where we get 2 points here or 4 points there. And then on top of it, she was, really bit by the turnover bugs, 3, 4, 5 turnovers in a game. And so I think she's really starting to find her groove here late into the season. Obviously, regular season is over, but I thought she had a really nice game today with all 31 minutes. And to your point, she was second in the team with the plus minus at 18. So I thought that she had a really nice complete game from us today. So hopefully her hand, I saw she, got hit there late in the game, was icing it towards the end. So hopefully her hand's going to be okay. But for me, I'm giving Shay my vote for hardest worker.
Yeah, and let's make sure we talk about Yarden had 15 points today, 6 of 10 shooting, 3 of 6 beyond the arc. She did have 7 rebounds and an assist and 2 steals. But I just felt, again, just from the first half, I felt Yarden was kind of invisible. And I thought Shay brought a lot of energy today. I thought Shay and when Shay plays like that, and I think it's also important for Shay, as we've watched her through the year, I think it's really important for her psyche to see one of her first couple shots go down. If she starts off 0-3, 0-4, it seems like she loses her energy or she starts pressing a little bit. Maybe it's more of the latter. And it just seems to snowball on her and actually go the other way. So I'm with you. I'm going to go with Shay here for the hardest worker. And again, to update for the people who are listening on your podcast feed, coming in today, Sydney had 6 hardest worker awards. This will give Shay her 6th as well. And then Chloe and Yarden each have 5, Caroline 3, Lily 2, Jules and Henna have 1 each. So we've had quite the eclectic array of Grace Berger hardest work. And to me, I kind of think, Kathy, that's what you want this award to be. You want this to be, a little bit more spread out sometimes. Whereas last couple of years, you felt like, especially on the game ball, was either going to be Mac or Grace. Maybe throw in a Sarah once in a while. But I personally, as a host, I like seeing a little more diversity in the hardest worker award.
Yeah, I agree. So back to our point with Shay Chusky, though. So Jeff, I was just looking. So you mentioned she's got 6 overall now. In the last 8 games, we've given her our hardest worker 5 of the 8 games. So I guess to our point, we're not only it felt like Shay has been kind of coming on here a lot better lately. We've evidently been awarding her, if you will, with our Grace Berger hardest worker. In fact, the last 3 games have all gone to her. So congratulations there. That's fun. Well, we've been doing a lot of numbers. Yeah, sorry.
You guys are going to say, come back to numbers watch real quick. So let Kathy kind of wrap up the numbers here as we head and wind down the regular season.
Yeah. So as Jeff already mentioned, today Yarden hit 3 3-pointers that put her at 208. So she is now first all time and did that in 3 years. So just amazing that she surpassed the previous owner by 2, who had 206. So I guess then the next number we'll start watching is just how many threes she can get. We'll start watching probably more next year as she starts trying to chase down AJ Guyton for overall 3-pointers made, whether men or women. So he, I think, leads the way with that at around 283. So congratulations to Yarden. So we'll keep an eye on that as well.
All right. So we don't know exactly who Indiana plays. We suspect.
No, we play Oregon.
Is it official that we will play Oregon? I want to make sure I actually see
Even
that in writing somewhere. All right. So yes, I know
I was listening to Austin instead of the TV people, and he ran through all of the different scenarios, and we are locked in for the 9 seed, regardless of what happens the rest of today with the games, because there could be a big 4-way tie that we're part of, and with all the different tiebreakers that are going on, even regardless, we are 9th and we'll be playing Oregon even if they lose tonight. So yes,
I knew that part. Yeah. I didn't know if Oregon won tonight, if it would get them into a situation where the tiebreakers would get them to a 7 or a 6.
Not according to Austin.
Yeah, that's why I love Austin, but I want to see some things. I want to see it in writing before I get too far. But soon
Sure.
they're playing Oregon. That game would be at noon Eastern time on Thursday. That game would be at noon Eastern time on Thursday, and it will be on BTN. All right, I wanted to check that. That game will be on regular BTN. So we can't really preview anybody here. We don't know. I guess we could have, but we didn't have enough time before we knew what. But we'll talk a little bit. We know Oregon, and that was a game that Indiana kind of should have won. They were ahead for most of the game, kind of let it get away at the end. So, and hopefully with Oregon having to travel to Indianapolis, maybe that'll help Indiana a little bit, hopefully a little of a hometown crowd. So just quickly, Kathy, any thoughts you might have about Oregon real quick based off what you remember from the first game?
Yeah, what I remember about Oregon is they really like to slow teams down. And, we're not a real fast tempo team anyway. Jeff, I'll try to pull up. I think did we only score in the 50s in that game? Do you remember?
I think so.
I think it was a really low scoring game. And yeah, we had a chance to win down the stretch there. And that was on the road. But that's what I remember. It was just kind of a ugly basketball game from all standpoints. It was just not my favorite game that we ended up playing. So I'm not excited about this matchup again. So I'm hoping that, our shooting is on point, because as we've talked about, this team kind of goes the way their shooting goes. They just don't have the, gosh, no, we lost 47-54. So we didn't even get to 50. We're going to have to get that in the, definitely well above that 47 points. So that's what I remember from them. They just really like to slow teams down. So if we can figure out a way to score against them, more so than the 47 points that we managed to score when we were out in Eugene, I think that this is definitely a winnable game. So I don't love it, but that's kind of what I remember. They're going to have to be able to make some shots. So if they're shooting more like they are today, I think we have a good chance.
And the winner gets USC. If you win the game, you're going to get USC on Friday. But right. Maybe at least a little bit of a neutral court, and again, a little bit maybe of a hometown flavor. But USC is, let's face it, this week USC is probably going to be the number 2 or 3 team in the country going into the tournament, or going into the Big Ten tournament. So they are there for a reason. But upsets happen, and I thought Indiana played fairly well in Bloomington against them. They had more talent. Real quick, I'm going to go around the Big Ten here. On yesterday, Michigan State knocked off Minnesota 73-58. And Kathy, I'm going to take us day by day before we get to Sunday. I'll come back to your thoughts. Minnesota, we talked quite a bit about Minnesota throughout the year, especially when they got off to a hot start. But water kind of found its level here. 73-58, Michigan State over Minnesota, and Minnesota then ends up finishing 8-10 in the league. And then also yesterday, as I mentioned already, an 80-67 victory over UCLA for USC to win the outright title. Real quick, just kind of your thoughts about Michigan State and Minnesota, especially.
Yeah, I really thought Minnesota would hang on there a little bit more with them, but being on the road, I'm not too surprised either, I guess. So, again, I was not able to really watch any of that game, so I don't have a whole lot of thoughts. So, a little surprised that the score was that lopsided for Michigan State, but yeah, same way. The Minnesota started out so hot, and then they just kind of stumbled a little bit more down the road here to end up, like you said, 8-10, right? Yeah. So then earlier today, Michigan went in Champaign, took and won 78-69 over Illinois. Nebraska right now is leading big over Northwestern, 73-50. So assume they're going to win that game. Wisconsin actually had a 1-point lead at the end of the first quarter over Iowa. And I think I saw this on the Peacock broadcast. Wisconsin hasn't beaten Iowa since like 2007. Oh my goodness.
It's like
and this is in Iowa City.
And this game's in Iowa City. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And then the big game to kind of keep an eye on here. Now that Illinois lost, I think that takes away some of the. But had Illinois won, the big game of the day was Ohio State and Maryland. But now I think Maryland's going to be locked into the 4th seed, whether they win or lose. So, but Ohio State. Actually, I'm going to check the standings real quick. I guess technically it could flip flop here, because if Maryland wins, won't they have 2 wins over Ohio State? So at 13-5, I think Maryland
Yeah.
would jump up to the 3 seed.
Yeah, I
So
think you're
that's a
right.
big-
Yeah,
that
because
that
Maryland
does
would
become a
be
big
13-5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maryland would be
Yeah.
13-5. They beat Ohio State earlier this year, right?
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So a
Yeah.
win would be, give them the tiebreaker. Kathy, real quick, why don't you take us through the Big Ten standings of what we
Oh.
know right now?
No, we were wrong. I'm fact checking us, Jeff. Maryland beat Ohio State beat Maryland in January.
Okay. So there'd be other tiebreakers involved.
Yes. So, okay, cool. Standings. Yes. So we have USC, as Jeff mentioned, is one outright at 17-1, followed by UCLA at 16-2. And then, as Jeff mentioned, Ohio State and Maryland play later today. So I think you're right, though. We'll have to see. I don't know for sure if that's still, even if Ohio State loses that because they split those games, I'm not sure then what the tiebreaker becomes with that. And then, as Jeff mentioned, Illinois is in 5th at 11-6. And then Michigan State here is 11-7 right after that. So a few more games left to kind of get through. So
Illinois officially becomes 11-7 now. So you have 3 teams tied for 5th.
ESPN's not updated. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a jumbled mess.
Yeah, I updated on the run sheet with those. You have Michigan State, Michigan, and Illinois. They're tied at 11-7. And if that's the order, I took that from the I think I got that from ESPN or the Big Ten website. I can't remember. If that's the order, that tells you the seeding. Michigan State would be the 5, and Michigan 6, 7 on there. And then, like you said, we're going to be the 9 seed playing on Thursday. Real quick, Kathy, your kind of overall thoughts about the Big Ten season, both for Indiana and also for the league in general.
Yeah, so for Indiana, and I'm sure we'll do a recap after the year. I think they left some games behind that they really had within their hand. We mentioned the Oregon game where they just couldn't shoot. I think Illinois, even though it's not a great matchup, I still think that was a winnable game that we had at home. I think for me, the biggest surprise was actually just in general how many games we ended up giving up at home. We had that Illinois game we lost at home. We had the Maryland game that we just lost at home. But there were definitely some other winnable games that were, right there for the taking as well. So that was for me the biggest surprise was overall just how many games we ended up losing at home. I thought we would have a little bit more, but we've talked about it a couple times. It felt like at times we were playing tight, more tight at home than we were on the road. Like how we looked against Iowa, I still think that was one of our better games that we played this year. And that was in one of the most hostile environments that you could go into when Iowa City, they still pack in their arena, even without Caitlin Clark. So, that's kind of my quick overall thoughts on the Indiana conference season. The Big Ten is pretty much right where I think called it, at least in terms of the top 4, right? I'm pretty sure we had exactly that pick: USC, UCLA, Ohio State, and Maryland. Again, not knowing how the tiebreakers between Ohio State and Maryland will work depending on how that game turns out. And then exactly what we thought about too in the middle, that 5 through 10 basically were just even 11 in there were just a big jumbled mess of teams and lots of back and forth and topsy-turvy. And it's fun though, right? We're getting down to the last day of the regular season and we still don't even know like how the conference tournament's going to be looking at and how the bracket is, because I don't even think Purdue knows for sure they're in or not, right? Like they needed to win today to make sure they get in, but I think they still have a way to get in if I believe Penn State loses.
To give you a heads up, Kathy, it has updated on ESPN. Already gave us a heads up on this in the chat or in the text. Purdue, for Indiana fans, Purdue's out. They will not make the Big Ten tournament.
Even better.
Rutgers won today on the road at Penn State, and they must have beat Purdue during the season because Purdue now falls into being the 16th place team. So Purdue will not be making, and this is not a Purdue podcast, but there's got to be some serious discussions about where that program's going with that. So, but Purdue is out. The 3 teams right now that are out are Purdue, Northwestern, Penn State.
Great. Even better. So we're all really super sad for Purdue. So, but it's still fun.
I'm
like
crying
there
tears
are
while they chant IU sucks.
That's right. As we're up 19 on them, but whatever. Anyway, yes, it's still fun to watch. There's meaningful games. This Maryland Ohio State game in particular here tipping off is meaningful to how the bracket and standings and everything could turn out. So, yeah, it's just been a kind of a fun season to watch all of it kind of playing out.
And then, Kathy, I'll throw it back to you real quick. Just any of your final thoughts about today's game.
Yeah, just again, nice to win on the road anytime, but especially against your rival, and to do it big, going up and into Mackey again and beating them by 20. It was kudos to the fans that were there as well. I could hear them through. Again, as I mentioned, I listened to the radio feed, not to the TV commentators, so I don't know how it sounded on TV, but through the radio feed, I could hear them chanting some IU Hoosier chants in there as well. So thanks to those fans who went and supported the team. Hopefully they'll show up here in the Big Ten tournament as well on Thursday when we play. So I'm interested and I'm intrigued to see how this team is going to do, Jeff, now that we're getting into postseason. So again, like we know, we're 92% sure we're going to be playing Oregon on Thursday. It will be the very first game on Thursday. So it'll be an early tip time, 12 Eastern. That game will be, I believe, on Big Ten Network. The Wednesday games, if you're interested in watching them, will be on Peacock, but all of the rest of them will be on Big Ten Network. I just don't know what to expect from this team because they have been inconsistent. They have had times and lapses where they have lost their focus. They haven't had their defensive intensity that they had. Coach Moran, again, during the pregame conversation with Austin, mentioned during that Maryland game, they just didn't they had the scout, but they didn't really follow the scout, if that makes sense. So we talked about that against Maryland. So which team are we going to get on Thursday? Are we going to get the team that played Oregon and only put up 47 points? Or are we going to get the team today that, we're shooting 70% at one point and playing some pretty good locked in defense? I don't know. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see how it's going to kind of play out for our Hoosiers here.
I'm not going to spend too much time with this game. I said this on Thursday after the Maryland game. It was a get-right game. And again, they did. They got right. They got off to a good, fast start. And I think that's the key when you're playing a team like Purdue that's struggling. You get up on them early and don't give them much hope. I was glad to see Sydney bounce back with a little better game. I was glad to see Shea continue to keep playing well. Now we got to find a way to somehow get that Ohio State game back and see how many games you can make that like in a row. And I get it. Shooting can come and go. But if you can find a way to come even close to what we got out of the Ohio State game, both offensively and defensively, I think that gives you a chance to make – it gives you a chance. I'm not saying you're going to beat USC if you get that opportunity on Friday, but it gives you a chance to make a run in the Big Ten tournament. You never know what can happen from there. I think at this point also, I think their NCAA seeding is pretty much locked in. I think they're going to be somewhere around anywhere from – again, you lose the first game to Oregon. I'm not sure that's a terrible loss. I think you're looking right now anywhere from at best an 8 to maybe a 10 seed for this team in the Big Ten or in the NCAA tournament, which means you're going on the road. You're going to play somebody good, and you're more than likely going to, if you want to get out of that sub-regional, you're going to have to beat the host team anyway. So, and so you're going to have to find a way to put a couple games in a row anyway. So, but I thought today was a good game. I thought for the most part, the focus was there, and we got good contributions from several players.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, right now we'll put it out there on the Substack and look forward a little bit, on Twitter and things like that. But right now our plan is to possibly be on Thursday night. We're both, neither Kathy or I will be able to do a live post-game show after the game on Thursday. But right now we're planning about 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 Eastern, but we might have to adjust that a little bit. It's sectional week here in Indiana starting Tuesday for boys basketball, and with coaching some of the stuff, I know we've got some things going on Thursday. We don't play Thursday, but I think we're going to have like a team dinner. So Kathy and I will make sure we get the times and everything out there. But right now our plan is to be on Thursday night to recap the Oregon game from Thursday afternoon at the Big Ten tournament. And by the way, if you are going to the Big Ten tournament, enjoy. And I saw there were still plenty of tickets available and looked like some reasonable prices for the Big Ten tournament. So that's our plan. Thursday in the evening to recap the Oregon game. If you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@, that's the @ symbol, Back Home Network. Again, youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. You can be a part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logos. Big thank you to Bob Thompson for the music you heard throughout the broadcast. And thank you for listening. We'll be back with you hopefully Thursday evening to talk IU hoops with you. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
All right. Nice.
All right. Nice.
Good
deal. Crowd with the
deal.
workaholics today.
Yeah. Lots of people in the chat. Thanks for being here, guys. Thanks for all the nice comments out there. We appreciate it. And if you weren't here, we probably wouldn't be doing this. So we appreciate you guys being here and everyone that might be listening after the fact as well. So. But Jeff, I think I'm going to get out of here. It's nice here. I'm going to go walk the dogs before we have a chance of snow come back in a couple of days. So
yeah, Kathy, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We will hopefully talk on Thursday.
Sounds great. Good night. Good afternoon, everyone.
Night, everybody.